Hello and welcome back. Dragon Man first appeared in Fantastic Four number 35 in 1964. Written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby. Dragon Man was the android creation of Empire State University science professor Gregson Gilbert. After the death of his family, Professor Gilbert, an expert in robotics, sought to build himself a companion to relieve his loneliness. Being fascinated with stories of dragons as a child, Professor Gilbert chose to model his android after a classic dragon. Unfortunately, Professor Gilbert was not able to bring his creation to life, but he was soon approached by centuries-old alchemist and enemy of the Fantastic Four, Diablo. Diablo successfully brought the android to life, but unbeknownst to Professor Gilbert, Diablo's plan was to manipulate the Dragon Man into battling his enemies, the Fantastic Four. The 16-foot-tall Dragon Man was incredibly strong, practically invulnerable, and had the ability to fly and breathe fire like an actual dragon. The Fantastic Four defeated Diablo and the Dragon Man, who fell into a frozen lake and went into suspended hibernation. But that was not the end of the Dragon Man. Thus began a cycle that would go on for years, as different supervillains would discover the Dragon Man and control or manipulate him into battling various superheroes. Although sometimes docile, Dragon Man, who had intelligence equivalent to that of a domestic dog, could be easily coerced or controlled by those with nefarious intent. Over the years, Dragon Man has encountered the Avengers, the X-Men, Namor the Submariner, Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, She-Hulk, Power Pack and Cloak and Dagger, and the Amazing Spider-Man, along with several more encounters with the Fantastic Four. Dragon Man's status quo only changed twice. The first was temporary, the second, so far, has been permanent. The first occurred in Fantastic Four Annual number 16 in 1981, titled The Coming of the Dragon Lord, written by Ed Hannigan and illustrated by Steve Ditko. A character named Ral Dorn came to Earth from another dimension called Ramatopolis, where the inhabitants ride dragons. Dorn was accused of a crime he didn't commit and fled to Earth, where he encountered the Fantastic Four and eventually Dragon Man, who Dorn tamed and bonded with Dragon Man becoming Ral Dorn's dragon mount. With the help of the Fantastic Four, Dorn cleared his name and returned to his home dimension as the Dragon Lord, where Dragon Man would finally be able to live in peace, but only for a short time. That status quo change didn't last long, and the Dragon Man was soon back on Earth, battling various superheroes, with really no explanation as to why. Dragon Man's next big change began in the pages of Fantastic Four number 579 in 2010, where writer Jonathan Hickman introduced the Future Foundation. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, the leader of the Fantastic Four, decided to create a better future for humanity, and so gathers genius children from around the world to shape these young minds into a team that can solve the world's problems. Around that time, a now docile Dragon Man was being housed in the Fantastic Four's Baxter Building headquarters, while Reed looked for a solution as to what to do with him. It was then that the daughter of Reed and Susan Richards, Valeria, who had inherited her father's genius intellect, found a way to enhance Dragon Man's intelligence. The now highly intelligent and pacifist Dragon Man joined the Future Foundation, where he not only helped to create scientific innovations, but he also became the beloved guardian and protector of the Future Foundation's children. The new intelligent Dragon Man has remained on the side of the heroes ever since. The box you see here contains the new Marvel Legends Dragon Man, made by Hasbro. This was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, an oversized figure that was a made-to-order premium. Prior to this, there have been two other Dragon Man figures, the first in 1995, in the Toy Biz line for the animated Fantastic Four. The second came in 2006, also from Toy Biz, in the Fantastic Four Classics toy line. Classics was a toy line that ran adjacent to the newly introduced Marvel Legends, and created figures in the 6-inch scale. And the Dragon Man from that series has commanded premium prices on the secondary market. Due to the very pricey nature of that Classics Dragon Man, a new version has been at the top of my Marvel Legends want list for quite a while. So I was happy to see Hasbro solicit a new one as an oversized made-to-order figure, where you could pre-order it and pay for it when it was ready to ship, rather than putting it into a HasLab where you would have to pay up front and then wait an indeterminate amount of time for the figure. Being that in the comics, Dragon Man is 16 feet tall, much larger than a normal human, Hasbro created this new Dragon Man to scale with these 6-inch Marvel Legends. First, let's talk about the box. This box uses the graphics from the 2006 Toy Biz Fantastic Four Classics line. It's got the same logo, the same font for the name, and it uses the same graphics of the Fantastic Four. Back in Toy Biz Classics, there was an image of the Fantastic Four on the card back, which they just took and wrapped around this box. So you have the Fantastic Four on the top flap, and they kind of bend around onto the front, so in back of the Dragon Man you see their torsos, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure why they went with this design. I don't know if anybody is nostalgic for the Fantastic Four Classics line from 20 years ago. I'm always hesitant to call something lazy when it comes to something professionally produced, but this seems kind of slapdash, the way they just took the old artwork, the old lettering and everything, and just kind of slapped it on the new box. It does make this release look very dated, because those Fantastic Four graphics are very of their time, very early 2000s with the airbrushed artwork and the costume designs. I would rather have seen them go with more of a classic look, maybe pull something from Silver or Bronze Age comics. So this box design really doesn't impress me all that much. On the back of the box you get those graphics again, with a couple of not very dynamic poses of the figure, and a little multi-language blurb on who Dragon Man is. But I didn't buy this figure for the box. Let's get him open and see what he looks like. We'll take a look at the figure without all his attachments first. He's a big, heavy, chunky boy. Dragon Man has changed colors a few times in the comics. He started off as gray, and he eventually became purple, so they went with the purple color. Of course, just like many monster characters that were created by Jack Kirby, he wears a little pair of shorts, just to cover up all his dragon bits, I guess. He has all the standard Marvel Legends articulation, so his head's on a ball joint. It's got a pretty good range of motion, considering the shape of the head. He does have an articulated jaw that opens and closes. He's got the usual shoulder rotation, butterfly joints, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, wrist swivels, the hands are replaceable. He's got an ab crunch, hips can go out and back and forth. He's got a thigh swivel, double jointed elbows, and a joint in the toes, along with the ankle rocker. So pretty standard stuff for articulation. I did have to apply heat to several of the joints to get them loose enough to move. As far as paint, besides the inside of his mouth and his shorts, he does have a little bit of paint wash around some of the areas where the scales are sculpted. It doesn't stand out that much. It's just a slightly different shade of purple than the plastic. There is some nice detail in his eyes, though. I like how the eyes came out. He comes with fists for both hands, a little Future Foundation book that he can hold, with some scientific formulas sculpted on the inside, and he's got a very, very tiny pair of reading spectacles. I'm not sure if there's an in-universe explanation as to why he has these. He is an android, so presumably he does not need glasses, but this is an old trope of how to make a beastly character look intelligent, kind of like they do with the X-Men's Beast. And they fit on his nose like so, but I don't think I'll be using these for display. Dragon Man's tail comes separate, you have to attach it, and this for me is the most frustrating part of the figure. This is made of rubber, and it has a wire in it, so you are able to bend it somewhat, but the base of the tail is very thick. Now, anybody that's played with rubber toys with wire in them knows that once you make rubber this thick, it doesn't matter what kind of wire you have in them. You're not going to be able to pose this because the rubber is way too thick. What you'd have to do was add some segmented cutouts to the thicker portion, and that way it would give it the room to bend and pose, but they probably didn't do that for aesthetic reasons. But without having those segmented cuts in the base of the tail, the bendability is pretty much useless. It's just too thick to bend at that point. The tail just attaches to that ball in his rear end, like so. But there's really nothing to hold it in any sort of position. So if you try to use the tail to balance him, to pose him, it's not strong enough to hold the weight of the figure. Even in a crouched position like this, I've tried to use it to try to help him remain stable, and it just kind of leans backward. So the tail is a bit of a disappointment. Dragon Man comes with 2 pairs of alternate wings, which pop into those holes on his back. And I have switched out the wings several times, and I am confident that they can be switched back and forth without anything breaking or stressing. Here are the folded wings, which are solid purple, and the outstretched wings, which have the membranes painted in that red color that really stands out. So the question is, why didn't they paint the red membranes on the folded wings? Is that oversight or is that cost cutting? I'm thinking it's cost cutting. Each pair of wings does have some articulation. There is a joint where you can fold them back or forward. And they do have the ability to go up and down inside those connecting points. Size comparison time. Here's Dragon Man with the retro card Thing and Invisible Woman. The 80th anniversary Hulk. Marvel Select Abomination, who is also a big beefy boy, but without Dragon Man's articulation. And with his android buddy, the Marvel Legends Super Adaptoid. That's it for my look at Marvel Legends Dragon Man. So the question is, was this figure worth the cost? Well, I love the character. He's been on my Marvel Legends want list for quite a while. I do not regret purchasing him. The size is great, the sculpt is nice, but it does have its flaws, as I pointed out. I'm not a big fan of the tail. I'm not a big fan of the unpainted membranes on these folded wings. So yes, I like the figure, but objectively, if you asked me if he was worth the money, I would have to say no. Hasbro sold this figure for $89.99. I think somewhere between $65 and $75 would have been a fairer price, given what I see in this figure. And even if you wanted it at the $90 price point, you can't get it now because it was a pre-order, made-to-order figure. It is no longer available at Hasbro Pulse. There are plenty of them on eBay, but they have been selling for an average price of $160. So if you don't have this figure and you really want it, you'd have to decide between you and your bank account if it's worth $160. Just looking at a figure of almost comparable size like the Marvel Select Abomination I showed, retail on the Abomination was $29.99. Now, there's much less articulation in the Abomination, and Diamond Select Toys is out of business now, so that's probably not a fair comparison, but just for the amount of plastic you're getting, I think there's a happy medium between $30 and $90 for a figure of this size. That's it for this one. Did any of you purchase Dragon Man? Are you pleased with the purchase? Do you think he was overpriced? And do you think a made-to-order pre-order model for larger figures like this is preferable to a pay-up-front crowdfund HasLab model? I think most of the time collectors would say yes, but let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, thank you for your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video.